So question for both of you. How do you describe pairing? Because pairing seems to be something that we do quite strongly at Equal Experts. Working at EE, was this the first time you actually started pairing, or was this something that you were already familiar with? You know, how did you sort of navigate through that whole process?
I think pairing is very interesting. I started reading about it about maybe 6 years ago. It was a very novel thing, and I tried to introduce it in the company. The managers didn't like it because they thought, well, two people in the same computer, you're just wasting time here.
That's the common thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Very common understanding.
Then I got to Equal Experts where people just do it naturally. I don't know if Subhash, your experience was like this too, but what I found is it's not necessarily a religious thing, as in you have to pair, otherwise you're doing it wrong. It's more like we like pairing because we share knowledge this way.
We understand value where we can derive value out of pairing, yeah?
But then sometimes people say, you know what, I'm just going to look at this piece on my own because I need to kind of focus or bubble in. It feels very natural because it's not forced. It's just one of the tools you have available.
I actually just recently joined another engagement, and the very first day, as Abraham said, I actually started committing because I was not on my own. So somebody was there to explain me how this whole systems work, what the infrastructure is, and it helped me quite a lot.
Have you both ever done sort of cross-disciplinary pairing? So not just pairing as two engineers, but also maybe an engineer with a designer or an engineer with a product manager?
I have paired with business analysts, I have paired with clients, stakeholders, and I have paired with UX, UI designers as well, which is very interesting because when you start pairing with these other disciplines, it opens a whole new perspective which you never actually thought about before.
We're beginning to pair with designers as well. So there's the person that says, this is how I want to see the page, this is what I want it to look like. And then we're together measure with things. And I found that really useful because I think back in the day it used to be there's some designer somewhere. The designer makes a design, gives it to someone else, and then what comes to you is just a screenshot. And then you're meant to make it look like that. But you're never too sure within that screenshot what is very strict and you really have to do it like that, and what is just an example and actually if it's a bit different, it's okay.
And you don't have the context, right?
Exactly.
Like, what's the user trying to do within which that screenshot exists?
Why they came to that conclusion, why a particular button is placed someplace. They didn't take into account some of the things which we were thinking, and when we are doing things, we might not have thought about some of the things they are thinking. So this pairing actually removes that hurdle, and we can actually come to a common understanding, which has been very beneficial.
How about test-driven development? We also tend to practice a lot of TDD. Had you come across TDD before you joined Equal Experts?
I've been doing TDD from first day of my professional career because very early in my career I realized the value of it, because when I'm writing code, who is my first client? And that test is my first client, so with test I can actually put my requirements, like thinking of a client from a client perspective, so I can become client at that time.
I like that, my test is my first client. I never thought about it this way.
That's what made sense to me at that time. In the start, that's the value, but as the code evolves, it becomes more important for somebody new coming in to understand why this particular line of code was written, because they can see it from that perspective.
Yeah, I feel like we have a new hashtag. My test is my first client.
Yes.
My name has a hash in it, so.
Yeah.
There you go.
Are there any other practices that you think are quite sort of typical to EE teams from an engineering perspective?
I don't know whether we will call it technical or people, but upskilling the client's team as well, which we are doing in a lot of our engagements. We actually tell them what the benefits of TDD, not by actually telling them, but actually showing them. Continuous delivery and deployment, continuous integration, test-driven development, pairing wherever it makes sense. And we are always pragmatic about these things.
Yes.
So when I say continuous deployment, it might not make sense for a given organization. Like a big financial institution, they're never going to say that I commit something and it goes all the way to production by itself without having some manual intervention.
I think that's very important, a pragmatic point of view, because I think sometimes we get lost on this is how you should do things. And there's an example that I had from a friend, I really like it. Someone was really banging about continuous deployment. You should always do continuous deployment. You should always do continuous deployment. And my friend said, can you imagine the software for a nuclear plant? Would you have continuous deployment there? And that was it. Yes, discussion over.
What does a typical day look like for you on a project?
All the days we start with a stand-up. where we discuss the things we have done done yesterday and what we are actually planning to achieve today. Start of the project, mostly for me, it was jump into coding. Whether it requires pairing with somebody else. Actually, I paired remotely quite a lot with teams in India. So that was quite interesting. Most of the time talking to other teams or setting directions or trying to resolve problems or trying to facilitate it in a way that there are no conflicts. When we start, we write these big epics. Those are at a very high level. There are a lot of details which needs to be added. So talking to the clients, adding those details and
So Abraham, tell me, what's the worst thing about your job?
Clients that usually approach equal experts or that hire equal experts, those are organizations that, on the plus side, they want to change, they want to become better, because equal experts is a lot about culture transformation, not just technology, not just product, it's about changing the way you work. But at the same time, it also means that they are organizations that they need help to change. And when you go to a place where people need help to change, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be occasional frustrations as well, and that is the hardest part.
More often than not, people who realizes these problems are not the ones we are actually working with. So they have a very different impression of how we are going to engage with them. So that actually leads to some frustration sometimes.
And do you think that it's sometimes it gets a little bit difficult making decisions given that we have such flat structures?
It does, because everybody's opinion is valued equally. Its decision making can be very slow sometimes, and it has been slow many times. But to be honest, the outcome always has been much better compared to what it would have been if it was just one person making a decision, and everybody also feels that they have been part of it. So yes, the side effect is that decision making will be slow and sometimes frustrating, and you might feel let down that it's not the decision what you were expecting, but it's much more democratic. And as we have seen, democracy works. So.
Given that we're actually quite a flat organization, how would you describe career growth? Because we don't sort of have a traditional sort of career growth path here at Equal Experts.
I like about Equal Experts that the setup has this network effect that allows you to make a lot of contacts that are very useful, and a lot of people that are doing a lot of interesting things. And then at the same time, as an associate, you just have flexibility to pursue these things. And that combination is really powerful in the sense that you grow not in the traditional sense of there is a scale or there is a hierarchy and you just try to climb up. You just tap into different areas and tap into different opportunities, and you do things that you didn't think you would do. I put the example of myself co-writing a book. That's not even unusual within the network. I think I know at least 4 or 5 people that have also written books. I know people who, there you go, I didn't know you had. Okay, I know another one now. I know people that speak at conferences. I know people that organize conferences, and then you just have all these people, and at any moment, everyone is friendly. You can just talk to them and say, hey, I'd like to work with you on this. Yeah. You just find the time to do it and do it.
EE as a organization not only just allows you to do that, they actually support you in doing those things as well.
Yeah, they encourage you. They want you to do all these things. They want you to be all the best you can be.